I could go out in the darkness, see you calling my name. I hear you shouting, hear you calling, but it's not the same. Every word that you are throwing right into my back doesn't matter to me, cause I'm keeping my track. Let me go, let me go, let me go. Stop talking, let me go. Our time together always ended up in war. Every whisper made you jealous, and that from the start. It is nice to see you shouting out for throwing me out. No excuses, but this time it's gonna be the last. Let me go, let me go, let me go. Oh baby, let me go.
Do you ever think back, like, about who you used to be? Like, even just say 5 years ago, who you were 5 years ago to who you are now, and think to yourself, like, oh my gosh, I'm so different. Who is that girl? Do you regret who you are? I mean, you're a totally different personality than you used to be, and people comment on it all the time, but how does that affect you? Like, how do you feel about that? Let me tell you, I've come a really long way, and I never used to exist. Like, you never allowed me out until, like, basically I've been growing stronger over the past 5 years, and now here I am full force, and a lot of people don't know how to take me. A lot of people don't like me, and I just don't really care, you know? I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but what I do know is I'm happy, and I think that's really important. I mean, do you regret letting me out? I don't think I regret letting you out. I think that you were always there. You were just extremely suppressed because of, you know, the situation I was in, or the people who I was surrounded by, and everything in my life was so minimal. Like, I was in such a teeny tiny box compared to where I am now. I think that I just didn't really know your full potential, you know? I don't regret letting you out. I feel like I'm more in control and happier than I've ever been. You're a little sassy though. Yes, I'm sassy. Somebody has to be. You have been controlled your entire life. Told who to be, where to go, what you wanted, what you could say, what you could wear. Look at you now. You just do whatever you want all the time. And you know what's even better? Is that it used to really be hard for you to do. You used to do it, and then you would regret it, and then you would stress, and you would freak out. But look at you now. With the help of me, you've not only been able to embrace yourself and truly start learning who you are as not just a person, but a woman in general. Cheers to you, girlfriend, because I know it's been a really scary experience. It has been. It's been kind of terrifying. But it's also been extremely liberating, you know? I never thought that I would ever be this brave in my entire life. And I definitely didn't think I would ever be this in control of what I wanted or what I allowed in my life or what I had in my life. Not having people there to constantly tell me how wrong I am or how I don't need to do something or what's not allowed and what is allowed, and I don't really question myself anymore. I mostly just embrace everything and let the chips fall where they may, you know? Hi! It's time for another episode of Monday Coffee with the Doll. I am the doll, your hostess with the absolutely mostest in her mug of positivity. Yes, ma'am. I am the HPIC, head pin up in charge. Yes, I am. So this week, I thought we would talk about the embracement of yourself and the letting go of maybe a past self that you once were. As human beings, we constantly are growing and changing. If I look back at who I was 5 years ago, to the person I am now, it's almost like I literally have no connection to that girl. And it's kind of weird to think about. It's kind of like a crazy detachment. One of my friends said it was total PTSD from the traumatic situations I've gone through. And I don't know if that's true or not, but it would make a lot of sense. But who I was 5 years ago and who I am now are literally night and day. So when I do my little parodies talking to myself, that's really how I see myself. I'm very much kind of two very unique people that it took me a long time to accept both and realize that I could be both and I can embrace both, and I didn't only have to be the one type of something that other people said I needed to be or that made other people happy, and have to keep other parts of myself hidden away because I was constantly afraid I'd be judged or disowned or hated. And it's a scary journey. It's not easy, and it's definitely not something that happens quickly, but I think that most of us spend a lot of time trying to be the people that others want us to be, so we really ignore a lot of things that matter to us, or sometimes we completely neglect fully understanding who we are because we're too busy wasting our time trying to figure out what others want us to be. So this week on Monday Coffee with the Doll, that's what we're going to be talking about. Let going the old, embracing the new, and sometimes just stirring them all up in a pot together. Yeah. So after the past 2 weeks and going through some of the situations that I've been going through, it really put me in a spot of like self-reflection, because I don't know, it's kind of this weird feeling where I've literally never cared less about, I don't know, I guess drama or people talking shit about me or people making things up and lying. If you've ever had that type of situation where you're dealing with somebody who there's really no situation, they just don't like you for whatever reason. And I've talked about this before on my show, where, you know, there's just going to be people out there who don't like you. They don't really have a valid reason, they just don't. And instead of, you know, just going on their way, they have to lash out at you. And there's always going to be people who we cross paths with, who we don't connect with, or we don't kind of vibe with on the same level. And we don't get along with them, and we don't know why. And, you know, mature people would just move on, right? You would just be like, well, I don't get along with this person for whatever reason, so I'm just gonna not be around them. They're not gonna be a part of my life. Sounds pretty easy, right? Well, there's a lot of people who don't do that. They have to engage, and they have to start fights, and they have to start drama, and they have to do all this crazy stuff, and it's hard to deal with, right? It's really hard to deal with. And I remember back when I first started my page and I went through things, it would really eat away internally, and I would be so stressed out, and I would be so just sick to my stomach, and my anxiety would be through the roof, and I would be shaking and paranoid and trying to figure out anything I could to fix the situation. But in reality, there wasn't really anything I could do, right? I mean, you can't stop people from lying about you. You can't stop people from making shit up. You can't control other people's behavior, but what you can control is yours, right? We talked about that in last week's Monday Coffee with the Doll. So I was kind of reflecting on how differently it's affected me over the past 2 weeks versus how it affected me back when I used to deal with it when I first started, and I can honestly say I'm proud of myself. I'm proud of how I really just, I followed my own advice, and that can be really hard to do. I don't know if you guys struggle with this, but a lot of times I can give really good advice, but I don't really take it. And it's easier to share perspectives and how to handle things and what you should do, and tell other people X, Y, and Z, but then when you try to apply it to your life, it can be really, really difficult. But I did, and I'm really proud of myself. So it kind of got me thinking about how we change so much as people as we grow. And I was reflecting on who I was even 5 years ago, and I'm so dramatically different than I used to be, it's almost shocking. And one of my friends had told me that it's probably PTSD from the traumatic situations that I went through. And I don't always openly talk about the stuff that I've been through. When people private message me and they're like reaching out for advice, I always return emails, messages, you know, whenever you guys reach out to me for help with whatever situation, whether it be an abusive relationship or toxic family members or bullies or whatever it is, modeling advice, makeup advice, whatever it is, girl advice. I've helped with girls, even though I don't really understand them myself. But I always try to give the best advice that I can, right? And when people come to me with topics such as abusive relationships or toxic family members or things like that, I get way more personal than I do in my videos, because I feel like sharing those intimate details can really provoke a change in somebody else to take action in their life. And someday we'll get to the nitty-gritty and we'll just have a big cry sesh, you know, on Monday Coffee, and I'll just pour it all out to you guys and you'll probably all be traumatized. But the one thing that everybody says to me is, oh my God, you know, I would have never guessed. Like, how do you function the way you do? How is it that you just show this ray of positivity all the time, but this is what you've been through? And I really think it's because I've somehow in my brain kind of shut off the association with that past emotionally and mentally to persevere through it, to be honest. And I don't know if that's a healthy thing or what, but I think it's how I've coped, and it's how I've gotten past those things so I can push forward and get anywhere. Because a lot of the things that I've gone through, when going through them, I just wanted to crawl in a hole and die, to be honest. But I had kids, and my kids definitely have always been my source, 100%. And without them, I don't know where I'd be. That's just real talk. And now that I'm in the place that I'm at, it kind of makes me feel, I don't know, thankful? I don't know if that's the right term for it, but by doing what I did and kind of disassociating with that part of my life and who I was, it kind of helped me be brave enough to get through all of those really difficult moments to get to where I am now. And if I hadn't have gotten through all of that and gotten here, I would have never believed that I could be here, like ever in a million years. I never thought that I could be this person. I'm so different than who I used to be. And who I used to be, I guess to explain a little bit, was a very controlled human being. I had a controlled environment at all times. I had more than one person telling me how I needed to act, how I needed to behave, what I could do, what I couldn't do, what was right, what was wrong. And growing up in such a controlled family environment, now I had an amazing childhood. Beyond amazing. Spoiled rotten. I've always had family members who've done nothing but love me and take care of me. It wasn't until I grew up and tried to become my own person that my immediate parental family kind of disowned that. And I think a lot of it has to do with mental health, and I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that when you're in such a tight knit group, like my mom and my dad and my sister and my brother, like you just feed off of each other and you don't really interact with the outside world, and you don't really have a lot of people giving you perspectives or reality, so there's nobody to challenge you. And when I challenged, my mom didn't like it, and it was so opposite of who she had always known me to be that it triggered something in her. And I don't really know how to explain it, and it's hard to talk about 100%, but it was like this switch that the more that I grew into a strong, independent, in control of myself person, the more I could see her disconnecting from me. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that I grew up in a really religious family. and I'm not blaming the Lord Jesus for this, because I don't think it has anything to do with it. I think that specific mental health issues find different things to validate themselves with and kind of make excuses to cope with the problems that they have instead of accepting and working through them. I think that they use it as a crutch so they don't have to. And I think that a lot of my worldliness that upset my mom was just her having to accept that there is more out there and that there are other things that are okay and there are other ways to be that is not exactly like how she's decided to live that can be accepted and loved too. And because I challenged that, kind of made her lash out. I don't know. So from the time I got with my ex, I was 17, and I had grown up in a family who I was homeschooled. The only people I ever associated with were my mom, my dad, my sister, and my brother, and that was it. You know, I never left the house once we moved to Oklahoma. When I still lived in California, when I was going back and forth, because I would get in my dad's truck, he's a long-haul truck driver, I would get my dad's truck like once a month, and I would go back to California and I would stay there for a month, and then I would come back to Oklahoma. Because that part of my family in California, I really have to thank, because my aunts, my grandma, even my Uncle Dave were always huge inspirations and sources of support and love for me. And even to this day, if I needed anything, they would be there. And, you know, even there though, was really controlled, and not in a negative way. It's just we were all such homebodies that there really was no worldly, outside, realistic interactions for me. So everything that I was involved in and everything that I knew and learned was coming from very specific sources that were kind of like-minded in a lot of ways. So I think when I got into my first relationship, I was naturally a target for the type of guy he was, because he was looking for somebody to control and dominate, who basically was young, naive, and would just let him do whatever he wanted, tell me what to do, you know, just control the entirety of it. So when you're that young and that naive and you've never dated anybody, you've basically lived in your bedroom your entire life, the only outside anything that you get is through MTV, watching Degrassi. I think my first like real insight into learning about like the gay community and the lesbian community was through Degrassi, 100%. Because like I said, I grew up in a Christian family, so anything gay related was always a no-no. And I don't believe that. So it's another reason why my mom gets upset with me, because I'm all about the gays, I'm all about just love, no matter what. But I think that because I was such an easy target for somebody like him, you know, I fell right into a pit that I couldn't get out of. And when I didn't have any help from my mom or my big sister to tell me, you know, what an abusive relationship was like, or what I should stand up to, what I shouldn't stand up to, it was just kind of this whirlwind of out of controlness. So no matter who I talked to, no matter who I went to, it was just always telling me how I should feel, how I should act, what I was doing wrong, what I needed to be doing. It was never, hey, you know, how do you feel about it? Like, ever. And it was out of control for a really long time. So from 17 until I was like 23, I'm living in this environment where I didn't want to upset my significant other, because anytime I acted like an individual, anytime I challenged what he wanted or what he told me to do or what he would allow me to do, it was always a fight. And I've said this before, I'm not a confrontational person. And it's taken me a really long time to get to the point where I'm brave enough to defend myself and stand up for myself. So back then, as if I opened my mouth and challenged him on any level, it was just a fight. And when you're dealing with somebody that's so narcissistic and so manipulative, everything that you think, everything that you feel, everything that you're trying to express is just smashed into the ground. You know, my anxiety and depression, I was crazy, I was this, I was that. My want to express myself through my pinup modeling was me being a selfish whore. You know, there was just any and everything that I did, wanting to go hang out with a friend of mine, that was a fight. You know, I needed to be at home with my kids because I was never allowed to leave the house. If I did leave the house, I was accused of cheating constantly. I was made to get a job to help out with the bills, but then I was accused of cheating with any person that came into the bar that I worked with. And it was like nothing that I did was validated positively. It was just always negative. So you get to this point where you don't want to move, you don't want to think, you don't want to act, you don't want to do anything, because this is giving me so much anxiety talking about it. Because all it's going to do is create another problem. And I guess when you are so desperate to just be validated and loved, because I remember sitting on my couch one day and deep breath. My ex was never around, ever. No matter what. Like, he was either working, or if he didn't have to work, he would go do anything and everything that he wanted to do. Me and only had Ben at the time came last to everything. And if I ever tried to say anything about wanting to spend time or wanting him involved in anything, it was always a nightmare. Family, like holidays, being involved in Christmas or activities or anything was just always too much to ask. And he would always make sure that it was negative. Like, he would be angry, he'd have an attitude. It was just like anytime I asked just for him to be involved in us, I was always made to feel like an asshole for asking. So you get to the point where you just don't want to ask anymore, you know? And then when you disconnect that way, then that's a problem too. You know, you're not catering to me, you don't love me anymore, you're not paying attention to me, and it's like, but I thought that you didn't want me to. You know, it's just like constant. And it's kind of like that with my parents in a lot of way. My mom is very much the controller of the entire family dynamic. Not very many people outside are brought in, and when they are brought in, if they go against anything that my mom and the kind of dynamic that they've created, if they go against that, there's just always this big fight, this big blow up, and all of a sudden these people are a problem and they're horrible people and we have to cast them out of our family and they can't be involved because they're just this, that, or the other. You know, it's always something. So anytime I wanted to do something, or I had a thought or an opinion or anything, if it contradicted what my family thought, I knew that it was going to be an issue, right? For instance, like my pinup modeling. My mom told me once that she couldn't even share any of my pinup stuff. Like, I don't even want you on my page, because my mom's a pastor. I don't want you on my page because I don't want my friends to see that you're my daughter and you're just, it's trash. You're just out here in your underwear and it's just trash, Emily. Like, that's not ladylike. That's not what a woman of God does. Like, it was just always. So needless to say, it was always just like negative feedback. Anytime I tried to do my own thing, act like my own person, have my own thought, it seemed to always be met with somebody trying to tell me why I was wrong, why I couldn't do it, why I was this, that, or the other for thinking this or doing that, why I was a bad mom this or a bad wife that, or I was a bad example for women because I didn't portray full modesty and this, like, there was just always something, right? And the more that I became my own person, which 100% did not happen until I left my ex-husband at all. And it was really scary because when you go from such a controlled environment where everything you do is dictated by somebody, and all of a sudden everything is up to you, you don't know if you can do it because you've been told for so long, you would be nothing if it wasn't for me. I'm the one that got you away from your family. I'm the one that gave you everything. I'm the one that freed you. And it's like, no, you took me from one cage and put me in another. That's not the same thing. And it was really scary. And I questioned myself for a really long time, and I didn't know what to do. And that's when I met my wife, my best friend ever, Ashley, who actually lived next door to the last house I lived in with my ex. Her and her mom and dad lived next door. And her and I didn't really talk until the night that my ex kicked me and my kids out. He, I've never said this, he kicked us out at 3 o'clock in the morning in the middle of December because our rent was due, our utilities were due. I had 2 new babies to buy Christmas for. Well, 1 new baby, 2 babies to buy Christmas for. Ben was 3, Charlie was only 3 months old. So we had all of this stuff that we had to do. And he decided he needed to buy a truck instead. So we had no way to pay our rent, no way to pay our utilities in the middle of December in Oklahoma, snowstorm coming. No way to buy Christmas presents for our kids. But he needed a truck, even though he got a car. But he wanted this truck so bad. And I had just come back, like, we'd been together, I made it 2 years. After we were separated for 6 months because he cheated on me multiple times. And I kind of realized at that moment, when I stood up for myself and I yelled at him, he was at work, I was texting him, and I told him, you know, what's wrong with you? We have all the stuff that we need to do, and you just had to buy a truck. Again, your priorities, what you care about, you are what's important. And he told me that if I didn't like it, I could pack my shit and I could get out. And it's like something clicked in my head that was like, you tried absolutely everything. You did everything you could do. You made all the sacrifices. You made all the excuses for his behavior, no matter how he treated you, no matter how he cheated on you, broke you, disrespected you, no matter what. You tried. You tried so hard to do the right thing. You tried to keep your family together for your kids. And now it's time to make the choice that's good for you and that's good for your kids. And it's time to not think about anybody else but you and your kids. My mom was there. I was really thankful my mom was there that night. And she told me, we're done with this, Em. It's time to go. And I packed my stuff. I got my babies out of their beds. And I left. I left, and I struggled with several moments where I panicked. I thought to myself, oh my God, what have I done? I need to fix this. How do I fix this? He's never gonna forgive me. I immediately started making myself the problem. But I didn't cave. I didn't cave to those fears that were put in me, that were not mine. Because I wasn't the person that he created me to be, you know? And I wasn't the person that I was told to be. But I didn't know who I was yet, by any stretch of the imagination. I still had a lot of learning to do. But I was brave, and the one thing that I did was I respected myself, and I knew I deserved better, and I knew that I did all the right things, And I knew that I had peace in my choice, and that I had the right to walk away at that point. It wasn't on me anymore, you know? And unfortunately, he continued to prove that I made the right choice. And here it is, almost 6 years later, and he's still proving that I made the right choice for me and my kids. And you know what I found? I found myself, and I found real happiness. We got all up in our feels this episode, didn't we? I didn't know, you know, after I left my ex and I moved back in with my parents, you know, I don't know who my family is at this point, but they're definitely not the family I remember. My mom and my dad have done so much for me and my kids, 100%. But unfortunately, I think that they just have, I think that my mom has a really warped, unrealistic mindset of how the world works, and I think that she deals with a lot of mental health issues, and I think that's where I get them from. And I don't fault my mom. I try really hard to be patient with her, and I love her so damn much. And I miss her every single day. And it's been like 2 years since I've had a real conversation with her. And the last conversation I had with my mom, I told her that I didn't need her anymore, that I found what she told me to go find. You know, my mom always told us kids that, especially me and my sister, you know, find men who love you and respect you and will be a teammate to you, you know, that will love you, love their kids, do the right thing, find honorable, honest, hardworking men. And I didn't find that the first time, by any means. And my family went through hell because of what my ex did to me. And my mom and dad told me to leave lots of times, and I hid a lot of things from them. And it's by no one's fault but my own. I stayed when I shouldn't have stayed. But I thought I was doing the right thing, and it takes you a really long time sometimes to figure out what the right thing is, and even more so what the right thing is for you, personally. And my mom and dad have done so much for me. Like, when I first left, I wouldn't have had a roof over my head, I wouldn't have been able to feed my kids, it took me a while to find a job, and then when I found a job, I wouldn't have been able to afford daycare, and thank God my mom took care of my kids. And you know, they let me use their car until I could afford my own car, and I did all the things right. Like, I fully took control of my life. I started doing everything I needed to start building a positive future for me and my kids. And then I found that man that my mom was always telling me I needed to find, right? And then it's like, the more I built my life more independently and I didn't need to rely on my mom or my dad, it's like that's when there was really an issue. And I think my mom validates herself by helping others. And I feel like when my mom feels like she's not needed anymore, that's when all of a sudden there's an issue. And the last conversation I had with my mom, I told her, she was screaming at me on the phone. And I told my mom that I didn't need her anymore. I got this. I'm the baby of the family. I'm not little M anymore who needs to be protected or needs people to take care of. I'm strong. Way stronger than I think anybody ever thought that I could be. And I changed a lot. And I became bold and probably way too verbal for most people, but I liked saying shocking things to make my mom laugh, especially inappropriate things during Bible study when she used to hold Bible study. But I became somebody who didn't need to rely on their mom. I became somebody who relied on themselves and just wanted their mom in their life. And unfortunately, sometimes I think we grow out of relationships, and it's not our fault. It's not your fault. I think that sometimes we grow too bold for other people, and we can't ignore or not embrace that part of ourselves because it scares other people or challenges other people. And I think ultimately that's what happened. I think that sometimes we grow into people that are so far from what and who people thought we were, and sometimes they can't accept that. And you know, I want so desperately to just be able to share certain things with my mom. And it's not my fault that I can't. And we have to stop, you know, really condemning ourselves for people not being able to accept who we are, right? Here's my closing. I think that there's a lot of people in this world who just can't accept change, and they can't accept that people grow and they change and they evolve. And we're not always 100% going to agree on everything with everybody, and that's okay. It's okay to not 100% always be similar with somebody, or think the same, or act the same, or want the same things. There's nothing wrong with that. And I think that a lot of us never really know who we are and never give ourselves the opportunity to find out who we are because we're too afraid that people in our lives that we love aren't going to accept us. And that's fucking scary. I went through a phase right before I moved to Texas, and I call it my Miley Cyrus phase. And I felt like I had to be bold and extreme and over the top to prove that my voice mattered, you know, and to prove that I didn't care, that people didn't like it. And it took me about a summer, it didn't take me that long, to realize that I didn't have to prove anything to anybody. That my voice mattered no matter what, that how I felt mattered no matter what, who I was and what I wanted to be mattered no matter what. And I didn't have to be, you know, aggressive in trying to prove that to anybody else. And I don't regret that stage at all. That stage taught me a lot about myself, and I don't think I would be where I am now if I didn't go through it. And now I really feel like I've come full circle. I know what beauty is on a different level. I know what self-acceptance is on a different level. I know how to love others in so many different ways, and I know how to accept others in so many ways. And I really value and appreciate so many different things that I never really even gave the thought of 5 years ago. And that would have really sucked. I'd have been missing out on a lot. I sure would have. And now, you know, it's one of those things where you kind of have to just wait it out. You can't deny yourself. You can't deny self-growth and self-expression and your own happiness because other people might not understand it or accept it. That's just factual. Okay, so in closing, we're gonna talk about our Monday Coffee Kisser of the Week, sponsors, some stuff that I have coming up. So check out my friends at Forever Above Me. Forever Above Me is an amazing brand that basically just supports really rad people and shares really rad things. You can get my Monday Coffee with the Doll mug of positivity from them. You can find the link below. I am creating some really fun new doll fan merchandise with them, so get ready. I'm excited. One of my doll fan members sent me some really cool elf ear headphones. I don't know who it was because it was from Amazon. I think it's probably the really rad gentleman I was talking to who sent me the Hermione wand. He sent that from Amazon. It didn't include a note, but these didn't include a note either. So I need to message him because I think that's who these came from. If not, if you sent them, comment below. This week's Monday Coffee Kisser was brought to you by Beautylicious by Anna. Anna sells some really rad products that are just good for your health, good for your life, good products in general. But one of my favorite, I use her whitening toothpaste. So if you want a white ass grill like this, contact her in regards to her toothpaste. But she just released a new Power Lips Fluid lipstick, and I've talked about these in the past, but in the past they were just they started out matte colors, then she expanded to a metallic, and now they have these really rad Power Lips polish. I'm wearing this shade Love Sandy, and today I just have the actual lip color on. It's a little tacky if you don't put the polish over it. It doesn't bother me. I love the finish and it stays on like a boss, but you can put the gloss over it and it makes it super shiny. You can find photos of that on my Instagram. You can find a handle for that below. But I really love this. It's super comfortable, super long wearing. I hate lip gloss, so I was scared of this end. But this is actually super smooth. It's almost like a lip oil, kind of. Really high gloss finish. And one of the things I liked about it is when I've used similar formulas and products in the past that are like this, as soon as you put the gloss on, it seems to break down the actual lipstick and it's got like that sandy feel, or it cracks the lip color. Not at all. Super impressed by that. I have some new collaborations that are coming up that I'll be able to share with you guys. I'm actually going to be trying out that super cool thing that sucks the blackheads out of your face. It's like a little vacuum cleaner for your pores. It's by Spa Sciences. I'm going to be reviewing that. That's going to be on my Instagram. I'll probably make a video for it on my YouTube. If you guys want me to make a video, comment below. I'm also going to be doing a live soon for Lange hair tools. So I'm going to be doing a pinup style with one of their amazing hair tools. That's going to be live on my Facebook page. So make sure that you're following me on all my platforms. You can find all the handles below. And other than that, got some new collaborations coming. Got a lot of things in the works. But mostly, I'm just here for y'all. Y'all know that. I love your faces. Thanks for holding out this week for me while we got super in our feels. But I think that it's important that we share these moments with each other. I've always shared this stuff with you guys. And you guys always been my biggest support system. So remember, I love your faces. Thank you for being here every week with me. And also remember that these are the days that fill your week. Make sure that those days are spent embracing and loving yourself first before anything else. So I'm Emily Doll. Thanks for watching Monday Coffee with the Doll, and I'll see you next week. So bye!